how do you organize your thoughts? What frameworks do you reach to? What tools do you have? Because organizing your thoughts is one of the key drivers of clarity, of crispness, right? Word salad elimination, decision making, and leading a team. And if you don't know how you're organizing your thoughts, then you may have unconscious competence, but you might have to rebuild that to actually be capable to lead a high performing team by having conscious competence of thought organizing models. It could be mind maps. It could be, very clear frameworks for everything. Yeah, I have a mental model for decision making, for negotiation, for sales discovery, but organizing your thoughts. I think that's one of the most uncommon skills to look for and to evaluate and theoretically to build into your team.
All right. Welcome back, Better Than Rich Show listener. Today we have Isaiah McPeak with us, and Isaiah's got an amazing story. He gets into it, but not only does he get into a story on this episode, he also gets into really, really detailed, specific frameworks to help you just gain more generalist skills, more soft skills that are going to actually aid you in growing your career and to function better as a team. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a manager in an organization, this lesson is really, really just full of value. He's founded 7 different businesses. He's scaled multiple teams to 50 plus team members. He's closed millions of dollars in sales and VC funding. He's designed products. He's really big in the tech space. And I just really love the way his mind works. He really focuses on helping middle managers gain their skills. He has a program called Next Step Leader that you can learn more about towards the end. But Mike, I'm curious from your perspective, what stood out from this episode for you?
Oh, well, he gave practical frameworks. I really love a couple of the questions of who, how to get past the gatekeeper, that whole who else needs to be involved and what else do I need to know? Those real good detailed questions that sometimes we know we should ask, but we don't necessarily know what the right question is to ask. So he gets into that, which I really love, and just a process of thinking that you can, this is literally one of those that you might want to go back and take some notes on or listen with the intent to take some notes on. So I think you're in for a real awesome treat with Isaiah McPeak during this next episode of the Better Than Rich Show. Get ready.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host, Andrew Biggs. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Abramowitz, as always. And today we have a special guest, Isaiah McPeak. Isaiah, how are you?
I'm great. Nice to see everyone.
Welcome.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Good to have you on the show. And, we were talking a little bit before this and, I was just kind of struck by your bio. They just heard it in the intro, but, scaling these businesses, having big teams that you've managed, getting millions of dollars in VC funding and all of this. And now you have this another endeavor, really helping middle managers and these up and coming leaders, really develop their skills to be able to, contribute at a higher level. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, just from your perspective, to get us started, what attracted you to this mission and why are you doing what you're doing?
Okay. Yeah. I think I've always been in the middle or bottom category, right? Early on and found myself leading from the bottom often in high tech growth, as well as a services company that grew from 0 or 1 person, me, to about a 50-person team in about a year and a half. And that process, going through that 2 times, was so much about leading up, but learning to be a middle manager for the first time. And there's a ton out there on leadership, but there's not that much on the tactical, the day in and days out of I just need my email to be better. I need my, when I have a meeting with an executive and they seem too busy, I need to know how to do that. And so you end up talking to people and stuff. And that exploration was really fun and interesting for me, but also extremely hard work. And as I've led now more organizations and consulted people, it just strikes me again and again that the middle manager investment is kind of the biggest investment you make as a business leader. And it's the scariest one because you've got 2 choices. You can promote someone from within who knows your business but doesn't know how to manage, or you can hire someone without who theoretically knows how to manage but doesn't know your business. And both of those are terrifying. Both of those take 9 to 18 months to reveal whether you made a good choice or not. and might take a whole team down if they don't turn out well. And so putting more attention on how do you evaluate that, but also how do you develop that? What's the skill set? Because you don't just like go on off to being, a great manager or whatever. That just gets me excited and has, a lot of chances to help people's bottom lines, but also I get to experience people making breakthroughs and aha moments, which is kind of my candy. I'm just wired like a coach.
I love this because as we continue to grow and scale our company, and as I've grown and scaled previous companies, it's like these department managers that kind of that we want to develop. And what I really dedicated many hours to doing is simplifying the role that they're doing, so that way it could cut that 18-month learning curve down dramatically. So it's like, what can I do as the owner of the company, simplify that position as much as possible, so that way if I'm developing someone from within, they don't have to be as good as a manager. And if I'm bringing someone from outside, then they don't have to be as familiar with the company. I'd be interested to hear that. That's my strategy. That's what's worked for me in the past, and that's what continues to work to this day. But I'd be curious to hear if that is your strategy, anything additional that you could add to that, or if you have additional thoughts that outside beyond just simplifying, or we could just continue to jam on how might an owner simplify their different departments. So I'd like to hear you riff on that for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. My brain's going two directions with it. The first is like, yeah, that's an awesome strategy, right? Double down on that and try to compress that time by writing it down. With the downside being that requires you to know how to do every job. And sometimes your goal is to actually, as the founder or initiator of a department or a business, you do a half-ass job at everything, and then you need to find somebody who can actually surpass, right, and take it from 80 to 90 to 150% what you were doing before. And so I don't know if you can define that. Let me just stop there. Like, how have you experienced that?
I love that. I think it's actually a valid point, because most of the things that I've experienced, most of the departments that I've placed middle managers in, I have had a decent amount of knowledge and experience inside of their departments. So it's a really good point that you bring up, where it's like, how do I make sure that I don't need to be the expert in what it is that they're doing, so I can be removed from that. It's actually a really good point. So how have I done it? I mean, I don't know if I have, not off the top of my head. I don't know if there's at least explicitly clear right at this second in time where there's been positions that I filled that I actually haven't been some sort of an expert in, or had higher level of experiences at than the people that I was hiring. So I'd love to hear, keep going. This is great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback on that, really a big part of our strategy has been hire outside, almost like vendors or contractors, right? Or agencies. But then you end up paying a premium, right? All of a sudden you don't have complete control. So there's a lot of challenges that arise potentially from that. It can work. But yeah, just to add a little bit of context and color, because I'm very interested to hear your answer.
I think that really closes like part of the loop on this discussion, which is it's an expensive problem. There's literally no way around that. And I don't think there's a shortcut. Right? We're going to pay consultants now to define it for us because we don't know how to define it. That's actually a viable option. But it opens up the second way my brain went, which is I think I've worked in a lot of high growth kind of companies, right? Some tech environments and some services where it's not a steady growth path. And so some of the jobs aren't like, okay, now if you just repeat this job again and again more times, more efficiently, we'll be good. There's a fair amount of, we've got to peek around the corner, and I need to engage higher level problem solving from my emergent leaders or my mid-level managers. And then it's like, I just keep finding people are all over the map on whether they understand things like they're driving a P&L. Do they understand that they are in a cost center side right now, not a revenue center side? And as a result, can they ask the right questions to say, are the costs that I'm generating through existing in my team being outweighed by indirect benefits on the revenue side or directly on the cost saving side. Like, how do I think about that? A lot of people have never had that thought in their life. And it's more like there's so many of those sorts of thoughts, in my opinion, that drive micro decisions and small behavior, that if you can accelerate the micro decisions, now we're talking about like generalist training less than following an SOP really well, where I want somebody with a switched on brain who sees things that I don't and solves the problem ahead of time. If I'm going to scale a team really rapidly.
Yeah.
I love this. And
This idea of high growth versus steady growth. One of the things that I talk about with some of our clients about the seasons, right? What season you're in. Are you in a spring season where you're planting the seeds for growth? Are you in a summer season where you're in there really manufacturing the growth? Or are you in the fall season where you're reaping the rewards of the growth and really strategizing what the next season of growth will be? Or are you in a winter season where you're just trying to get out of whatever shit you're in, right? So it's like the seasons, and each of those different seasons have a different strategy. And so I like this idea of high versus steady. Can you continue to speak to that, especially with maybe the season analogy or whatever makes sense for you?
Sure. So let's take, I'll take a tech company, for example, because it has clearly defined stages. You have this sort of pre-seed, we're coming up with the idea, and theoretically, we're not building that much product, and we're not even closing as many deals as we could, because we're trying to see how much cost is there going to be associated with building a scalable product. And that moves into a seed stage where you have like a closed beta, usually should be, if it's B2B, like maybe 6 to 12 customers. And you just kind of refine, because you're finding a model to copy paste. But the weird thing is, then as you get to the second half of seed stage and our trajectory moving towards growth, you do have something on repeat that you're copy pasting, but it's the model. And that's primarily the technology and the underlying like movement customers are experiencing on it. And it's like everybody on the team is actually orchestrators of that model or something, right? And so your customer success group, your product group or whatever, they are more like maestros of a section of the business instead of like, playing a particular instrument, because the instrument being played is your customers experiencing the product and their throughput. So if that all sounded like really theoretical, the part to me that gets really practical is it's way different to watch customers go through something and have all these very soft skill type questions like, how close are they achieving the value that we anticipated they would have? Which channels are providing us the higher value clients when we look at lifetime value? Maybe it was cheaper to acquire this customer, but they churn faster. How do I think about eliminating handoffs between silos and departments that exist in a unit so we can go faster? How do I frame problems for executives? And then the big one, how do I kill the natural creep of groupthink and meeting culture so that we keep moving? Those skills, I feel like, are almost impossible to wrap an SOP around. They're more a set of general principles that you have to apply in your specific situation. But that situation is like this machine and it's almost out of your control. And so the skill set of writing that is like very squishy set of skills that almost can't be a job description. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love that list of questions, that you rattled off there. And listener, if you didn't capture those, go back and write those down, because that was pure gold. Basically, Mike was, I don't know if you know the full story, Isaiah, of how Mike and I met, but Mike was my very first coaching client, actually, believe it or not. And I sent him a random LinkedIn message. So anybody who ever says the random LinkedIn messages don't work, this is living proof. But I mean, Mike was a client of mine for 4 or 5 years and just so embodied and was like my best student that eventually, said, hey, come join the team. And there was a ramp into that and all that. It's a whole story. But where I was going with this was there was a time, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but we initiated, it was called Think Like Mike training, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, we have this training going on, but then it's like, we need to pick off like the creme de la creme and train them in how to be a generalist. And that's really what I'm sensing you're saying, this idea of a generalist skill set. And, you know, I'm also a big fan of hiring specialists, but the truth is that, you know, I really love specialists who also have other skills, like know how to operate inside a company, know how to bring some cool things to the table that are more general in nature, who can consider other departments and the impact of what they're doing here on other departments. So just that concept of investing in your managerial tier, right? It reminds me of the story, right? The CFO and the CEO are sitting down in a meeting, and the CEO says, we need to invest in our middle managers. We need to invest in our leadership team. We need to make sure that our skills are being developed at the highest levels and that our team is growing. And the CFO says, well, what if we invest in them and they leave? And then the CEO says, well, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And it's like, you know, the whole point is, hey, look, it's going to be a nightmare if we don't do this. Yeah. We might lose some talent, but at the same time, we know that this is really the only option we have if we want to grow. So I know there's a lot there. You know, what do you think of all that?
I think like Mike, that's brilliant, because that's exactly, I literally call it mini CEO when I'm inside of a company. It's like, I want to build mini CEOs who are making decisions from a big picture perspective on the whole business, even if they have a small picture segment that they're responsible for. And what happens is when they're not being pushed that direction, you end up with extremely excellent operations that are highly costly to all the other operations. For example, you've got a customer success team and a technology department who are both operating really well, but inside of their bubbles. And a customer issue emerges. Tech team is like, debating you about, is that a bug? Is it priority 1? Is it priority 2? Whose fault is it? And did you fill out the form right? Oh, you didn't capture browser requirements, right? They're doing all they can to dodge and reduce the amount of input into their machine, because that makes it go slower and worse. That can be the natural result of hyper excellence, but without the think like Mike, be a CEO decision. We're like, no, I actually understand from a big picture perspective, when we slow our team down and we don't do some of the things we had planned to these 2 weeks, but it delights the customer, even though the customer came from the other department, now I become really good at receiving passes. And that's what a CEO wants from any department, is they want not to have higher walls between departments, making it hard to throw a pass and receive one, but lower ones. And so we have to coach, though, our middle managers, because the lizard brain behavior is the most natural, and it's the most we're used to and the most that we see when we experience other businesses. Like, how do you coach somebody to say, no, we'll receive the pass to our department no matter what form it comes in? They didn't know how to prioritize it. They didn't grab the right screenshots, this and that, whatever. We're going to be the most friendly. Like, our internal other teams are our customers. That's a freaking hard principle to adopt. But there's no CEO in the world who doesn't want that. And so that's where I'm kind of lasering in on what you said, is CEO thinking is where I think I'm trying to drive most middle managers all the time.
And by the way, the Think Like Mike training, I actually have those recorded from me having these conversations with my staff. This is circa like 2017, 2018. They're on a private YouTube playlist that if you message me, listener, I would be happy to share Think Like Mike training with you from, circa 2017, 18, just to kind of get into the mind. It's actually quite funny having these conversations, because really what it was I was a lot of curiosity, was like, how might we type of questions. It was very much like, how might we, Snapchat was like a big thing. It was like, how might we leverage Snapchat on attracting our the demographic of people to get their eyeballs on us? It was like, what are some strategies on what we could do here? It's just like asking those types of questions. So it was really training them on how to think or ask questions more so than how to do activities. And that's why I really love, I agree with Andrew, some of the questions you're asking. I'd be curious, are there additional questions that a listener could jot down like some of your favorites or some of the things that you could just rattle off that these are some of the questions that a middle manager really ought to be asking, or these are the questions that the CEO should be asking as they're bringing on middle managers, something along those lines. I think that'd be really helpful to capture.
Yeah, where those questions come for me in my brain is they're actually coming from frameworks of topics that are sort of I've been organizing for almost 15 years now, and it's up to like I think I have 350 different topics in a mind node that are these skills. And so if we switch it from questions to skills for just a second, some of the uncommon skills that I think are worth questioning about and leveraging is, how do you organize your thoughts? What frameworks do you reach to? What tools do you have? Because organizing your thoughts is one of the key drivers of clarity, of crispness, right? Word salad elimination, decision making, and leading a team. And if you don't know how you're organizing your thoughts, then you may have unconscious competence, but you might have to rebuild that to actually be capable to lead a high performing team by having conscious competence of thought organizing models. It could be mind maps. It could be, very clear frameworks for everything. Yeah, I have a mental model for decision making, for negotiation, for sales discovery. But organizing your thoughts, I think that's one of the most uncommon skills to look for and to evaluate and theoretically to build.
So what is the framework on how to, what would be the framework? Yeah. How might someone figure out a framework?
So classical rhetoric is the framework that I draw on for this kind of model. So they call this dispositio. It comes from arrangement, and I picked it up through debate and rhetoric stuff and brought it into business. And so thought organization means that you have mental models for the key topics you work with. And there's generic ones like, how do you explain something? And I actually can rattle this off now because I use it so much of like, well, there's 5 ways to explain something. I can define it, describe it, etymology, genus, division, species, and give an example. Those are the only 5 ways really to communicate anything. And I'm able to run through that in my mind in a meeting when I see glazed over eyes, and that means I'm better at explaining things, right? So there's general topics like that. But then in each specific field or discipline, you have to discover what are the specialized topics and find a framework for that. So product management, right? Okay, I need a framework for discovery. I need a framework for value proposition. What is a value proposition? Oh, it's a problem statement, an insight, and a benefit. If I don't have those 3 things and then match them to a customer segment, I won't know the actual value proposition here. That's a framework that you have to pick up. Unfortunately, nobody is out there just organizing them. They're scattered across different books, and some books are dead on, right? Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? So it's a pyramid diagram. These are the 5 dysfunctions and how you fight them. Great. Now I have a really solid teamwork framework. Is it the best? I don't know, but it's good to have one instead of to not have one and fly by the seat of your pants, right? And so that's the kind of things that we want to ignite with mid-level managers, is that they have a framework or are seeking a framework at all, will tell us, can they organize their thoughts in this discipline or that topic?
Well, now you have piqued my interest because I want more frameworks. So Isaiah, I think a listener is saying, okay, I hear this, I hear you. Maybe they're familiar with your next level leader model. Maybe they're familiar with your frameworks, but those that aren't, maybe you could kind of peel back the curtain for us a little bit and give us some of those frameworks, whichever ones you feel compelled to share would be great.
Okay, I'm going to let you choose your own adventure here, which is deploying a framework that we call the pyramid principle. And it comes from Barbara Minto, who's one of the first consultants at McKinsey, I believe, 50s, 60s, very famous for report writing. And in summary, the pyramid principle says there's a big triangle made up of smaller triangles, made up of smaller triangles. And the best thing you can do to communicate is communicate about the big triangle first, and then let people choose which small triangle they're going to chase. We do that a lot in executive communication, right? I can tell you, I brought a pitch that has everything you would expect. Where do you want to start? And you might say, show me the numbers. Great. I go to slide 11 and I use my slides as random access memory instead of something to go through, right? So that's an example framework. So we're using that framework right now. The movie that I want to play for you is, I think there's like probably 3 frameworks really interesting to explore. One would be the DNA of a business end to end. So you can organize all knowledge of business in that framework for the rest of your life. The second would be gatekeeper conversations. Hitting gatekeepers is one of the most common dramas we have, both in internal organizational behavior as well as sales processes. I've got a great framework for going through that. And the third one, really soft skill, is going to be the 3 rules of engagement for conversational trust with an executive or a strategic relationship.
So we only get to choose one adventure?
We start with one. which movie do you want to watch?
They all sound so appealing, Isaiah. I'm like, oh my gosh. When I heard the first one, I was like, well, it's number 1 for sure. But then I heard the other 2. You got me second guessing. I'm at the ice cream shop getting random samples here. So I don't know, Mike. You started the thread. What's the what you got to pick your adventure? What's number 1?
I want to start with the last one you said, the three rules of engagement.
3 rules of engagement.
And then I almost like want to work backwards because that was the last one I heard. So that's like what stuck in my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So this one's really cool. It is developed by my mentor here in Austin, Stephen Tomlinson, who is an absolute savant. He's an improv comedian, playwright, business consultant, PhD in international economics, theologian, founder of the MBA, founder of the teaching model at the Acton MBA program. I think you all might have heard of that. And just all over the place, full on TED Talks. Like, this guy's really cool. So he created this model that we've used in high stakes sales negotiations, but then transitioned into other places. And last year he got published in a major psychological journal for showing that these 3 tactics in calling Meals on Wheels recipients, the same tactics that we use for sales negotiations, demonstrably reduced anxiety, improved well-being, and improved trust between the people conversing. So without any further ado, the 3 rules of engagement, which are way more caught than taught, meaning we might think we're doing it, but not doing it. And so we have to role play, are, first of all, 1 point per turn. 2 points is a speech. 3 points is a sermon. If we're trying to negotiate or get something done with another person, 1 topic at a time. So we start our sales discovery calls with, what brought you to this call today? I was sent here by someone. I don't even want to be here. Oh, why do you think they sent you here? We adapt and go back and forth 1 point at a time. Increases trust and skips a lot of steps very quickly, and can be used in email, text, and face-to-face conversation.
I was going to say, so that was 1 point. All right. That was 1 point. I didn't know if it was like,
yep.
All right, Mike, all I'm giving you is 1 point at a time today. So no, yeah, I want to hear this.
I'm letting you dive in if you want to.
Yeah, give us number 2.
You get to make it go. Okay, so number 2 is open questions rather than closed questions. Most of us ask closed questions when we mean open questions. So a closed question starts with is, would, could, and you say, would it be interesting to you to do this? Is it okay if I send you a demo? Would you be open to? Those all naturally, like, what's the most natural grammatical correct way to answer a question like that?
It's going to be yes or no. One word.
Just yes or no. You know?
Yes or no. Yeah, there's no story there. Now, when you and I are sitting next to each other, doing whatever we're doing to hang out or at a bar or whatever, if I say, was your day today good? You don't say yes like an angry teenager. You're like, yeah, and you tell me the story because we're friends and we have trust, and so we see through. But as situations increase in their intensity, such as sales talks or negotiations or whatever, people start to become far more literal. Their brains slow down a little bit and they process the exact words you're saying and usually respond. So if we want them to tell us a story, we have to change would it be okay to how should I get this in front of you? What would you like to see next? What's the best way to engage with you on a proposal? We ask an open-ended question. That's like changing a yes, no to a Likert scale at minimum, but it always is going to get detail when you ask an open-ended question. So we say, tell me what you mean by that. What, how, why, those sorts of questions are open. And when we have stories to engage with, we'll know what to do next more naturally than if we force it with like, is it okay if I give you a demo? The third one is to follow the clues. And what that means is we're looking for emotionally charged phrases. So if somebody says, guys, I've really enjoyed the Better Than Rich community so far, but I'm frustrated with some of the response times of the VAs. I'm not saying somebody would say that, just saying if they did, okay? The worst thing you could do is what most people do, which is reply to it. And you'll say with a solution, we're reducing those response times right now. We've got an initiative to crack down on that. We're solving the problem, right? We hit them with an answer. But if you hear somebody say that they're frustrated, it's a chance to let them get all their emotion out and become pliable and work with you from the same side of the table if you follow that clue. What's been most frustrating about it? Or even if you can't think of more, just say the hot word with a question mark on it. Frustrating. Frustrating how? Well, yeah, this blah, 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 blah thing happened. And it was like this. Now you know the detail and you're going to be able to engage with it. And the same is true for positive clues. Oh, yeah, we've really loved your community so far. And I can't wait to get the rest of my team in here. Instead of answering that, what if we said, what have you loved about it so far? Oh, this and this. And we'll get that story. In a sales or customer success situation where we're trying to get to revenue or we're trying to turn around an angry customer, this clue following will usually skip 5 or 6 steps that you're going to go through when you just pitch them or answer the point instead of following that clue. And it's something really cool that you can practice at home or with family or in the airport. You know, what's that tattoo is a free follow the clue question. Because if they don't want to tell you, they just say they don't want to tell you. They're like, I'm not interested. But if they do, because they're wearing a freaking clue on their body, they probably will tell you. And you get to get started. So I like to make that a little game. I have a 14-year-old daughter, so she's dripping clues off her all the time, right? From how she walks and dresses to the stuff she says. It's like my fun little game of, can I open her up and get her to tell the story by following that clue of, you know, oh, what's got you down today? Instead of how was your day? That's a way better clue. Way better than the close-ended, did you have a good day?
Yeah, this is so good, man. Thanks for sharing. And as you're chiming in, so again, just to land the plane, one point at a time, open-ended questions and follow the clues. Right?
That's right.
And, you know, I totally agree with all of those. And to your point, it's one of those things where, you know, I've learned these things. I've picked them up. I don't even know where I picked them up, but I kind of understand that. But I don't know that I had it, packaged in a concept and collated into a concept that I could go teach my middle management. Right. Exactly. So it's almost like the only way that someone actually would get that training is if they just kind of hung out with me all the time. Right.
I'll tell you a great story about this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Fill me in.
Perfect. So I had a customer success agent who was incredible. I actually hired him out of a Verizon store because he stayed till 10:30 p.m. with my wife and I one day and was just fun and funny and got the job done even though it was outside of his responsibility area. Hired him later for a tech company. Brilliant customer success agent. Terrible customer success manager. Literally, the first time he had a team and he was a little frustrated with how some of them were responding to customers. He's like, y'all just need to be like more human. Just be more human. That's his whole breakdown, right? Like, well, how do you be more human? It's access to frameworks like this that teach that to you. But a lot of our star players, or if we're out there and we've been out there just doing it for a while, we forget the breakdown. And you can't really learn a skill without breaking it into its pieces.
Right. It's providing that scaffolding, right, is a concept that I like to teach a lot about. You know, you're a musician yourself, but it's just like, you know, if I wanted to learn the trumpet, which I know you know how to play,
Yep.
I'd have to first learn a fair amount, right?
Yeah.
Before I could, start sounding like Louis Armstrong or something.
Right. You can't. It's that's why that what is that funny musical about teaching a band? You can't just use the think system, the Music Man, right? You can't just
Sure.
play. No, Andrew, literally just play it good, okay, and it'll all work.
Correct. So it's like providing that scaffolding, and just a couple of additional pieces on that, like follow the clues. I like to ask, to your point, I want to get all that emotional energy out.
Mm-hmm.
I can use this on sales calls. A lot of times I use it to dissipate situations, whether that's a disgruntled employee or it's a disgruntled customer or it's a situation like that. Quite frankly, even a disgruntled partner, this could be useful for. But just letting them fully get their full story out before you respond, just is so useful. Where I use what I call the awe question. So it's and what else, right? So hey, you're frustrated. Okay, tell me more about that. Get curious. Okay, what else? What else are you feeling? Tell me more.
Right.
Tell me more. Tell me more. Until they eventually go, yeah, I think that's it. It's like
that's right. So all kind of full circle here. That's a habit of curiosity. How do you make curiosity an SOP or a job description?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think you can.
And I don't either. I think it's like we don't want people who, and this is the problem with MBAs, right? Is like you have a lot of analysts who understand business, but they don't necessarily do business, right? It's easy to understand these breakdowns, but it's harder to do. And so that's where I think the actual coaching is the right thing. Is you have to actually identify that was a rep. It didn't go well. Try it again and get another rep in and have success. And so that's why my program is built on a dojo model of like, let's come and train on this, because we can do the same situation and look at our little transcript and say, oh, dang, we didn't follow that clue right there. Let's replay it as if we did. Will it be different? What'll happen? And experience it that way. And I think we can all provide that kind of format with our mid-level managers and junior employees, but we have to be very intentional to craft the ability to experience curiosity instead of understand curiosity.
Yeah. Well, I know I kind of jumped in there, and I do want to get back to these other two frameworks if there's time. Mike, what do you think? Should we try to get more frameworks out of you? Right?
I would love to if we could. I remember the second one, which is a gatekeeper.
Sure.
The first one, I don't remember offhand of what you said it was.
Was like DNA of an entire business, or like knowledge base, or something like that.
Just spit it out and just like so we capture it. That would be awesome.
You got it. Okay. And I have like cool handwritten drawings of all this stuff where this is one of those that we get the whiteboard out on a call on an iPad whiteboard and literally work people through this process, because just a few times you experience it and it works. So here I am in, let's call it a sales conversation, but it could also be, an internal approvals process or legal or HR in the way or whatever, right? I can't do that because of them. Well, I need to talk to them. No, you can't talk to them. So the framework is to anticipate gatekeepers. And in sales, that's easy because you're always trying to find, do they have the authority to make the decision? And you got to figure out who else. So the first step, and this is the exact order, that's what's important about this process, is the decision. You're finding how do they make decisions in a specific order, and is always going to feel like the right next question. And the gatekeeper's guard is going to drop. If you get these out of order, the gatekeeper's guard goes way up and you don't make it through. So who else needs to be involved in decisions like this? Who? That's our first question. Who needs to be in the gate? Who else are the gatekeepers? Let's anticipate that that's there. Who all needs to be involved? Then second, the magic question, what do they care about? We insert the real subject matter, right? So what do they care about when making decisions like this? What do they care about when deciding on whether to get a new SaaS tool? What do they care about in choosing how they mentor and train their employees? So you're asking the gatekeeper about knowledge about the decision maker without asking to talk to the decision maker. This is exciting for them because that is the gatekeeper's role, is to understand their decision maker. What do they care about when it comes to this? How do they like to get information is the third question. How? How do they like to get information? Well, they need to see a study in a document. Okay. They like to have people come to meetings. They like to get their information from me. My recommendation is what counts. Whatever. However they like to get information, let's be open to that. And then we get to the offer, which is where we offer exactly what they just said. For whoever is involved past the gate, the things that they care about, we are going to package it that exact way. So let's just say I'm doing actually what I do some of the time. So let's say I'm having a call with somebody really big, like Adidas. I'm talking to someone about skills. They're really excited about it. And I'm like, yeah, so can I talk to the HR manager? Is like where I'm trying to get to. I say, who else needs to see our model for improving skills? That'd have to be, that's an HR decision. Oh yeah? Who over in HR? Oh, that's VP level. What does your HR VP care about when looking at talent development programs? I'm having that conversation and progressing through it, right? And if we get to how do they make decisions? Well, we have a monthly meeting. And at that meeting is like, that's the time to make decisions. Every salesperson in the world wants to come to that meeting, but that's probably pouncing on your level of trust with the gatekeeper. And so instead, I just have to very openly ask, how do they like to get that information? And they say, yeah, usually it's in a slide. And then I offer, you know what, could I make a slide for you that you'll feel really good presenting at that meeting? It's going to make you look great. Yeah. Let's work on that slide together. And that's what we do. That's how you break through a gatekeeper. You end up with them as your partner.
That's great. Who, what, how, make the offer based upon what you hear. Really, this is what we want. This is what our audience wants. We want these digestible components, because now now anybody who's listening before we get to the DNA, it's going to be like, damn, how many more frameworks does this guy Isaiah have, man? He probably has.
I'm a collector. I'm a collector of frameworks. Yeah. And I say, what's the hard part for me about turning this into a business is like, I don't own these frameworks, right? That's another Stephen Tomlinson kind of inspired framework. And I have been a collector because I love reading books and finding these frameworks, and my brain already has some mega frameworks going on. So it's almost like what do they call that? A image palace, a memory palace. I'm trying to think of that. It was like popular for a second in a movie.
It's a memory palace. You're talking about how you like when you're trying to remember like a deck of cards?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the Sherlock Holmes film. They had a name for it. It's like his imagination palace or whatever. And like they were always zooming to it. And it's like, wow, he's actually stored information in these places. I've got some mega frameworks. And so each time I read a new book or this or that, like here's 4 ways to do this, I'm like, ooh, does that go with the frameworks that are already there? So I'm a collector more than an originator of these things, if that makes sense.
We love it. That's a value.
But that's a value, and especially if you throw people into a dojo where they can practice. We came from a sales background, initially selling Cutco knives, and it's like basically the whole training, Isaiah, which probably won't surprise you when I say it, is like just reading the script and practicing with your partner, and over and over and over again, role play, and the manager's just walking around listening, giving feedback, giving encouragement, and it leads to results. So
that's right, exactly. You have to it's the athlete visualizing themselves and also doing the skill practicing, right? Because 2% of your time is game time. The rest is skill time. And in business, I think sometimes we don't realize how true that is of our skill execution, especially in something like sales. Yeah, you've got to dojo that.
Well, we framed it up, so I think we'd be remiss if we missed that last framework. So let's do this last framework.
Let's not fast too. So this one I picked up from, this was probably the experience of my life, was after doing government services and stuff, recognized, because I grew up as a military kid and did not understand the business world, didn't know anything about startups, hadn't heard of them. And I started reading Inc. magazine when I was building a government-focused services thing. And I just realized there's a world called tech startups and I need to be in it. And I was able to be the first employee of a 5-time CEO and author, Edwin Miller. And he had just written a book called 9 Lenses, Insight to Action, a social approach to business optimization. And it was like his lessons and framework for all of business. I got to build an entire company around that and product around that as a product leader. And it is like kingdom, phylum, genus, species for business. So every topic of business fits into the framework. There are no topics that don't. And it was my job to manage that framework. And I ended up head to head versus McKinsey and Accenture and folks like that, and doing some of the biggest business you could imagine with Fortune 10s using this framework. So part of my job was to organize all the business books that were popular at the time into that framework. So here's the framework. There are assets that drive your company. There are operations that make your company happen. And there are structures that make sure it stays on the rails. The 3, and each of those has 3 lenses in each, and they're the 9 lenses. Each of those has sub-lenses. There are 37 sub-lenses. And you can get that in his book, 9 Lenses, Insight to Action. The 9 lenses are market. Your market itself is an asset, right? Its timing, its size, its characteristics, people, your leadership, your culture, your right roles, right places kind of stuff, your team strengths. And finance, your financial position, and how you account for that and how you drive your business model. Those 3 things are your assets. Business books can fit into those, as you can imagine, right? So throw 5 dysfunctions of a team right there into people, culture, throw Maxwell stuff into the leadership sub-lens of people, like that. Then you have operations, execution, and strategy. Those are the next 3 lenses. Each of those has its own sub-lenses as well. And each of them has books and processes and entire practices and disciplines, right? So where does Six Sigma go? Well, that's in operations. Where does lean startup go? That's in execution, the way it's built out. Where does blue ocean strategy go? That goes in strategy, right? So you kind of can keep mapping knowledge that way. And then the last 3 are a little weird. They're entity, your LLC, S Corp type of thing, and the capitalization table, your ownership structure, your governance, which I've recently in the last 2 years noticed often speaks to life or death for tech startups when you have people who don't know how to govern software being in charge. And then expectations, which is this sort of like meta side thing of like, how do you set, manage, and change expectations? So, or how does your company do that? So there's books and training and stuff in all of those. And my brain, like that's my mega framework for business end to end, is I'm very confident that anything new I encounter in business, I can put next to something else in one of those buckets.
Dude, I mean, this is so good. Thanks for like letting us corner you and twist out some really good stuff, because like listeners, if you go back and actually really soak up what you're getting there, I mean, even integrating one of these lessons, could make you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, I really appreciate you being willing to kind of open up, behind the paywall, if you will, into what you offer, to kind of give us a taste of that. I'm curious, just at a macro level, like, I talked to a little bit about the CEO and the CFO, why this matters, but also like sometimes from my chair, and I can put, especially if I put myself into an audience member's chair, it's like, okay, I'm an overwhelmed, busy entrepreneur, and I hired a bunch of, we're starting to scale. So I know I need to build out this managerial tier or whatever. I'm sold on that concept. But sometimes I'm in my own world, right? I got blinders. I got my own challenges. I'm putting out fires here, there, left, and right. And I think that a lot of times we get disconnected from what those challenges even are that our staff is experiencing. It's easy to take them for granted. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think is really, to channel the voice of that middle manager, like what you think their challenges really are? Because a lot of people listening might feel disconnected to that and might even not know how to meet them where they're at and understand their needs. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that is the question, and it's extremely challenging. because it requires time and creative energy. The answer, in my opinion, is the strength and proactiveness of your feedback loops and the associated boundaries that you hold with your employees. I saw you all post one recently that really inspired me, of the mistake thing of, first time it's on me as the manager, I didn't explain or document it right. Second time it's on you, you didn't follow the thing that the first time we decided we would do. Third time we can't work together, right? That's on the boundary side. But on the support and feedback side, sometimes we're really bad at that. And I think one of the big things is a very Jack Welchian era type of management strategy, which makes sense in a manufacturing floor where a lot of business practices come from, which is the open door policy. I think a fair amount of CEOs and leaders believe that an open door policy constitutes effective leadership and feedback gathering. And it really does not, especially in an information age, especially in disconnected office and global teams. We have to be more proactive than that and recognize that all of us are living in a world where it's not safe to give feedback. And so we're all full of experiences of somebody saying it is safe to give feedback, but then it actually isn't. And so then we have to lie at first before we can come to realize it's safe. And so you as a leader have to prove again and again that it's safe to give feedback, that you want the feedback. And the way to do that is by acting on the feedback. So you have to actually create a real feedback system. And I think that the way that works is anonymous surveying and then how you handle that decisively and immediately. Hey, these were the 3 most negative things that people said. Here's what we're going to do about it. Thank you. Thank you. 2, it's rhythmic evaluation. It doesn't have to be anonymous, but I like to do in a services business especially, what are the names of your processes? Just what are they? You can actually do this, believe it or not. You have a customer service process. You have a finance or a collections process. You have a process for everything. There's usually like 5 to 40, probably closer to 10. Let's rank our processes and rate them. Just give them a grade, A through F, or number them 1 through 10. Cool. Here are our lowest performing processes. Everybody, let's have an idea fest. What is every action we could take to improve those 3 worst processes? And now we're going to choose some of those ideas and we're going to put them into action. You can't do that all the time because you still have to operate your business. And sometimes it's okay that a process is janky because it's less important. So you do this openly, and that helps them think like a CEO, because you're like, yeah, this process that we all said sucks, it's going to suck another month, because this process here that's okay, it drives most of our business. That's why I want you all to understand this, why we're going to invest in that one. So it gives you that conversation back and forth to think like Mike. But evaluate that. Do that once a month, once a quarter, and change topics. Let's evaluate our processes. Let's evaluate our strategy. Let's evaluate our people. Do something like that once a quarter, plus anonymous feedback loops. And now you're going to be, I think, driving that kind of result that you want.
My final question for you is you mentioned that you have a 14-year-old, right? You've traveled, you have built a beautiful life for yourself. We're in front row dads together. It's like, if I'm listening to this, it seems like there's a so what for me as well. So it's like, what has been the benefit to you personally in your personal life to like really be in tune with all of this in your professional life? What has it freed you up to be able to do? And why would that be beneficial for the listener as well?
Yeah. I think the big thing for me on the personal side is life is the way that I see it now. And so the skills that are used in communication, like rhetoric is the subjectless subject. They're applicable in interpersonal life stuff with kids, with business partners, with customers. And I really I believe that if you haven't figured out how the thing that you're trying at work works at home, it's actually probably not working at work either. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing is I have a lot of like nerdiness around that of like, this has to work in both places or it probably isn't good. It probably isn't. And the second one is that as a father and educator, I obviously feel that our education system is garbage at cultivating real skill. And it hurts my heart. I want to help fix that. And also, I get reps in with my kids on things. I want them to distrust. I want them to learn to negotiate. I want them to sell things. And so we work at that. I want them to evaluate stuff. We have a tech contract and we evaluate that using this sort of feedback loop. We have a Kanban board at home, right? Like those sorts of things might sound controlling. They're actually not, and we don't follow through with them as good as I'm making it sound right now. But I feel like my level of awareness and attention is heightened from like send kids to do clerical work and book learning. That's not going to help them. I want them to think like Mike, and that requires different kind of conversation.
Oh, that's beautiful. And thanks for sharing, man. And I love this concept that if it's not working at home, then it probably doesn't work. And you're applying these principles, internally at the house as well. It's like, of course, our kids need structure, right? Of course, they need some sort of, boundaries around these things. But also you're creating feedback loops and evaluating. So I think it's great. So Isaiah, we always ask our guests 3 questions before we depart for any podcast episode. And the first one is, what do you think the world needs most right now?
I think the world looks at things in binary, almost like that whole open questions, closed questions. And the world needs to recognize that there are steps and scales to almost everything. I find that nuance is the answer to seeing another person as a person instead of as an object, and is the path to problem solving. And we got a lot of problems and we're not solving them well because we talk like you're stupid if you don't see my side and there's only 2 sides.
Profound. Isaiah, what are 1 to 3 books that you think people should read?
Okay. I think right now, I'm a huge book person. The 4 Agreements is probably close to the top of my list. Very easy, very quick read, hard to do. And I guess that's another framework, 4 things. I'm working on the first 2 right now, which is be impeccable with my words and don't make assumptions. The second book that I'd recommend to everybody is, I have to say Made to Stick. It's one of the best communications books you'll ever read by Chip and Dan Heath. And it talks about how to be sticky. It gives you a nice acronym to remember to set the bar for all your communication. And the last book, I have a shelf and I have like 20 different books that I order lots of copies of. And it's one of my love languages. This is to give gifts. And so I'm always giving people books. So I'm thinking like, what are books that I'm giving out all the time? One of them that's a little off the wall is 60 Ways to Turn a Phrase by Arthur Quinn. And it explores the lost art of figures of speech and teaches us all that we can all be advertisers and historical quote manufacturers if we just learn to imitate a couple of figures of speech.
That's awesome. Thank you. Some good recommendations there and some new ones as well, which we always enjoy. So final question is, what does it mean to you to be better than rich?
I think it means to be on mission and on purpose. I'm not interested in, like, rich is not an end in and of itself. It just isn't. And I definitely have that desire to make a dent in the universe, and I have a mission, and I think it has to do with this. It's to improve the skills of people who make decisions. That's it. That could be a business, really tickles me, but the mission itself is the thing. And I think better than rich is to look back and say, yeah, I did something that mattered.
Well, Isaiah, I could assure you right now that listeners are like, man, I really want to stay in touch with this guy. You've given me so much value on the technology side and our brief interactions that we've had off this episode on like just how to use GPT and some of the technology solutions and what else is out there and the questions that I didn't even know to ask. And you've just been such a helpful resource for me just to get my mind turning. So if a listener wants to stay in touch with you, wants to just continue the conversation, maybe like, I don't know, do you have an email list that they could, do you have anything that they could learn more about? What would you say?
Thank you. Yeah. So I have an email list on my business called Next Up Leader, nextupleader.com. Just go to that, join the email list. It's pretty much just content. So I do these filming segments called aha moments and breakthroughs that are literally like my assistant says, what were some breakthroughs that happened in your client calls yesterday? I'm like, oh yeah, this person learned this, that person learned that, and this person made this happen. And we send those out. So I'd love to see you on there. And that's the best way to engage with me.
Well, that's awesome. And, I think that no matter whether you are a middle manager or you're somebody who leads people, or you're just, somebody who wants to learn more about some of these concepts and frameworks, join that email list. It's literally nothing, nothing that you're going to have to give to be a part of that. So I'm going to do that right now. And thank you, Isaiah, for your time. And listener, assuming this episode has helped you as much as it's helped us, it's your turn to help others by sharing this with a friend, subscribing on YouTube, giving us a rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we just really appreciate you helping us jog that algorithm and get this out to more people. So thanks again, listener. Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you, Mike. This has been amazing. And remember to leave today better than you found it. We'll see you next time on the Better Than Rich Show. Bye, everyone.